Hello everyone, how are you doing today? In this video I'm going to be sharing about my experience and thoughts on working at a psychiatric hospital and 5 lessons that I learned while working there. But first I want to shout out Frank James for creating this shirt. I got it from him. It says introverted intuition, which is my dominant function as an INFJ. My NI is firing off today, and that means it's the perfect day to create a video. So, woo! Shout out over. If you're new to this channel, my name is Allisun. What? Wow, that was weird. I just said my full name. My name is Allisun, and I make videos about my upbringing in a dysfunctional family and how it's affected me today and how I'm moving forward more resilient and how you can too. So if that's your thing or these kind of videos are your thing, anything psychology, I also do proactive resilience in action vlogs. Subscribe and stick around. I'd love to have you. So without further ado, my experience working at a psychiatric hospital. First, let's talk about Bessel Kolk's experience. In The Body Keeps the Score, the author, Bessel Kolk, discusses his experience in the psychology field that led him to all of his knowledge that he shares in this book. And he worked at a psych hospital at one point in time, and he relayed his experience, and I totally relate to his experience, and so I'm going to share that with you. I was often surprised by the dispassionate way patients' symptoms were discussed, and by how much time was spent on trying to manage their suicidal thoughts and self-destructive behaviors, rather than on understanding the possible causes of their despair and helplessness. I was also struck by how little attention was paid to their accomplishments and aspirations, whom they cared for, loved, or hated, what motivated and engaged them, what kept them stuck, and what made them feel at peace, the ecology of their lives. And then he went on to say, there was no question that many patients on the ward engaged in violent, bizarre, and self-destructive behaviors, particularly when they felt frustrated, thwarted, or misunderstood. And how he would restrain patients at times, either in confinement or physically, to have them injected with medical intervention that would calm them down. And he gradually realized how much of our professional training was geared to helping us stay in control in the face of terrifying and confusing realities. I did not last long in that job. Bessel, I feel you. I lasted 8 months in the psychiatric hospital in Michigan that I worked at, and it was a life-changing 8 months, but overall, I do not find that the setting was effective for healing, and I also didn't find it positive at all in my life. Working there, that time was not an easy time. It wasn't a good time. My work there wasn't enjoyable. It wasn't a good time. I didn't like it. So, why? Time out. I just realized that the cat water fountain is on. So if you hear trickling water in the background, that's what it is. And hopefully maybe you can bring some of its tranquility of falling water, effortless falling water, into your soul, into your being. Yeah. So, anyways, let's talk about my experience now. Jumping right in, the main reason why I did not enjoy working at the psych hospital was because of what Bessel said. Patients' symptoms were discussed so discompassionately and so separately from the patient. With patients, deep discussions were hard to have because there was so little staff. The staff that was there was overworked, underpaid, underappreciated themselves, and oftentimes uncaring, uncompassionate. Maybe because of those reasons, maybe because of other reasons, who knows. But the conversations behind patients' backs, I'll say, were oftentimes discompassionate, judgmental. From the staff's point of view, not everyone's staff's point of view, but like some people definitely, they felt inconvenience and judgmental about the patients. And that's not conducive for healing. It's just not. And oftentimes there were patients who were dangerous. It felt unsafe at times. And that's not conducive for healing either. Personally, I've had people I love who have gone and been admitted to psychiatric hospitals, and I don't see them benefiting from their stay there, visualizing that experience. And also family members who are going through a hard time and we're like, what do we do? Admitting them into a psych hospital through like the court. What is that called? I'll put that here. Hi, Vero. Was an option considered, and I just couldn't imagine that they would be helped in that environment. So overall, as a staff, it was a negative experience. I'd imagine that as patients, it wouldn't be an effective experience. Could have been really negative, could have been positive. It depends on the person. But I didn't think that it was super positive. And another reason for that is that there's not enough time, like I said, to have these in-depth conversations and get on a really healing level with everyone there every day during their stay, as is probably needed. Like, there's people who felt wronged by their family getting them admitted, even though that they had what seems to be a clear psychotic episode. They feel that they were experiencing reality and their family just betrayed them and sent them away. That is deep stuff. Either the betrayal, first of all, the psychosis, if that's serious stuff that needs really in-depth psychotherapy, like one-on-one, consistent, for a long amount of time psychotherapy. And other people who more like personality disordered tendency, possibly, you don't really know, were in there and saying that their parents had them admitted and their parents are the ones that are psychotic or disordered in whatever way, and they were being wronged, and it was like more viable that that was the case. Like, maybe they were in there and they shouldn't be. But whatever the case, whatever is true or not, this person who is in the hospital could use some big attention and therapy, and that was not always available because there were unsafe situations that were prioritized because people are in there to be kept safe. Moral of the story: you are admitted into a psych hospital if you are a danger to yourself or a danger to others. So in the psych hospital, pretty much you are watched and made sure that you're safe, you're alive and breathing. But the actual healing is less of a priority. And I'll give a couple of examples of the dangerous things that happened while I was working at a psych hospital, just so that you guys can get an idea. And then I'll move into the positives, the lessons that I learned while working at a psych hospital, because there were positives. There were opportunities for healing in the way that I want to at times, and they happened. Good things happened, but yeah, first let's talk about this danger. So the very first day that I was on the floor, meaning on the unit, I was being trained, and there's one job that is super important to keeping everyone safe, and that's called rounds. Someone with a clipboard, or now they maybe use a phone, I don't know, walk around and check on everyone and writes down what everyone is doing, pretty much to make sure that they're safe, and that happens every 15 minutes. And then some people are checked on every 5 minutes, and then some people have a staff member one-on-one with them at all times because they are seen as such a danger to themselves. They cannot be left alone. So the first time that I was on the unit, my very first day, I'm not making this up, the first day I was on the floor, whoever was on rounds either was negligent or a patient was sneaky and got around them. You know, like learned when the rounds happened and like what the typical route was, and like maybe hid and then went off behind the round person's back, behind all the staff members' back. There was a patient who somehow, a man, got into the women's part of the unit and had intercourse with another patient. Also, I'll note, patients have a roommate, and the roommate was in the room as well. So I don't know how that person didn't like, hey, get help, I don't know, like come out or say anything, but they didn't. And that was just so terrible. Like, I don't even need to explain why. It's so terrible, so not useful for healing. Like, even for everyone else on the unit's experience, how could you feel safe if that happened to someone else? If you know that's just happening, like, in this space. Ugh, so strange. And so I'm pretty sure the police came. Lawyers, I don't know. It was my first day. I was, like, just trying to do my best with what was happening, and had interviews with these individuals and other individuals. And at first it was said that this intercourse was consensual, and then it was said that it wasn't, and who knows. But that happened. There were other patients where they had tried to take themselves out of this life, and that was really scary all the time, like thinking that they're like watching staff and trying to do something sneaky when the staff's not watching. We can't go in rooms alone with patients unless we're one-on-one with them, but we always want to like make sure that we're continuously being seen by cameras, because allegations could be made or actual assault could happen. That is pretty scary. And there's also, in my hospital, it was unique because there was a specialized pediatrics unit in which individuals with special needs were admitted, usually very extreme forms and physically violent forms of special needs. And for some reason, that's how I got into my work that I do now, as well as trauma recovery coaching. That's what I do now. But I also caregive for individuals with special needs, and this was my introduction to it. I don't know why I love it, but I do. And so I primarily worked on that unit, and there are individuals who were just so violent, and a danger to staff, a danger to other kids. At one point there was a patient who we had to barricade ourselves in group rooms, and they would just go off on the rest of the unit, like banging on doors, and until they were just medically down, you know, given a medicine that just like calmed them down. And that's not healing for them. Special need in individuals with special needs, people first language. I learned that there at the psych hospital, to use people first language. Individuals with special needs, not special needs people, because, or like narcissistic people. Like, they are people first, and then whatever it is that they're struggling with. You are, I am. Anyways, that is not the help that they need. They need intensive behavioral therapy, maybe other cognitive therapy. But also, a thing that I'll say is that while it's not the most healing for some individuals, the hospital was respite, was like a nice retreat from their environment at home, which might have been even worse than the psych hospital, which is a bad way to put it. But it was a really negative experience. The last individual that I talked about, I would be at home and would have bad dreams in a way that I've never had them before. I'd wake up and somehow still be in dream state and think that this individual was at my house and that I was unsafe. Like, they were outside the door of my bedroom, and like I needed to, like, because they could get in and they would hurt me, or I would think that I was at the hospital and they were there, and it was weird, like traumatic, and probably traumatic for other kids also. But anyways, that trip down memory lane, I think, is going to conclude the bad part of my stay. I didn't stay there. It was not a Shutter Island sort of experience. It's going to conclude the bad stuff, and now let's move into the good stuff, the lessons that I learned while working at a psych hospital. The first major lesson that I learned working at the psych hospital is that while I wanted to change someone's entire life for the better, I wanted to get to know who they are, what they struggled with, and how I can help, and how they can just feel better. I wanted to just change their entire life. While we can't always do that, we can change someone's life in this moment. We can change this moment in time for the better or for the worse. And you can't always choose to be a positive, uplifting part of someone's life right now. Make this moment in time just a little bit sweeter. Choose to see them in this moment, to hear them, to care about them, to make them feel like they matter. And so there were many opportunities when I could stop and really give that gift. It's a beautiful gift, the best that you can give to people in the psych hospital. And those were the best moments of my work there. Moments when I could stop and really care about somebody. And yeah, it was great. And I try really hard to do that throughout my life since. And you can too. The second big lesson I learned was that I am capable of setting my mind on healing and healing. Some people are not able to do that, but I am, and I don't know if you are, but I can say you're probably more capable than you give yourself credit for. So people at the psych hospital, they definitely needed medical intervention and intensive treatment. And I think that they could use a more collaborative treatment style and maybe holistic than what was offered, more compassionate, everything, than what is offered in a psych hospital. However, intensive help and support from others in many different means was necessary for them. They couldn't just set their mind and be like, I am going to be resilient right now. I can do this, and do it. But I can do that to a large degree. And little advice that I'll give to you on that is to just take it slow. Be super patient and gentle with yourself as you do set your mind to healing. Know that you can set your mind to resilience and go get it. But day by day, incorporate one small change consistently over and over, little by little, again and again. Incorporate one small change and let that solidify in your life, and then add on to it one more little thing. And then after a while, you'll see that big changes are actually being made. Your capacity to think and to do and to set your mind and do, and it grows. Your capability grows. So start small, start slow, and let it grow. But you can do that. I think you can. The third lesson I learned while working at the psych hospital is because I started working there the week after I went no contact with my narcissistic mother. And while I had minimized my family situation for my whole life, I'd known that it was like chaotic and I was all sorts of whirlwind tornado being swirled around by the dysfunction. I didn't realize that there was actual bad manipulation happening and really poor treatment by individuals who were going under the radar by, manipulating other people and other people's lives. And so while that minimizing was happening for so long, the year leading up to no contact, I was de-minimizing. And I think came to a place where I was almost doing the opposite, really clutching on to the negative, the bad things, the manipulation, and how bad things were. I think the psych hospital was a way to rebalance and see that other people have it way worse, and that mine, it may be bad, but it brought me back to earth in a really healthy way. I think of a lot of things in resiliency are like a pendulum. We are at one side of the spectrum, and then like a force of nature, in learning about that and making a change in our life, we go to the other side of the spectrum. For instance, another thing that I experienced was being very quiet, lost child style, to being overly assertive and sort of aggressive. And like a force of nature on a pendulum, we go from one extreme to the other, and what we want to shoot for is balance, that nice middle ground. Whatever side of the spectrum you're on, in any scenario, just take one step in the direction of the other tendency. You know, shoot for the middle ground, shoot for balance. If you're minimizing your life, take a step towards acknowledging that things aren't okay. And if you're like really gripping how bad everything is, take a step towards realizing that there's also goodness in life and people who have been through worse, and like, you're okay. The fourth lesson that I learned while working at the psych hospital was to take my perspective and set it aside and try to understand before being understood, and not bring whatever it was that I was going through, like having a parent who might have exploited and exaggerated problems in my life, and putting it on to the teenagers and the young adults who were in the psych hospital, for example. That's not their story, that's my story. Leave that aside and think of their story and realize that I don't know what their story is, and I will never know if I assume. And so it's better to be curious and ask questions and assume that I don't know, and let them tell me and assume that they're correct in being the expert at their life, and learn and care and see them. You know, put my stuff aside and see others. And I know that a lot of people are like, yeah, duh, Allisun, but a lot of people comment on my videos and say things from their perspective. And it's like, dude, this is a general thing, and there's a lot of general advice that I can give, but there's so much dynamic uniqueness and individuality in my circumstances. And you don't know what that is. You don't know me, and you don't know what's best for me. Like, upon going no contact or cutting contact, people are very judgmental, and they are speaking from their perspective, from what their story is and what works and doesn't work in their story. But the intricacies of my story are different. And so while it's great to relate with someone and be like, your story is similar, I just learned at the psych hospital to really put my story aside and see others fully. So, hi baby. Hi baby kitty cat. Come here. Come here, kitty. Oh, it's a baby cat. She's unhappy. Pharaoh, come here too. Come here. Pharaoh. Oh, it's a baby cat. Look at how big she is. Okay. And the last lesson. What did I learn? What did I learn? And the last lesson that I learned working at the psych hospital was that I was not meant to work at a psych hospital. And to generalize, I really tried to stay there because I thought they needed me. But that was self-abandonment. And if you guys are abandoning yourself by staying in a situation, a job, a relationship, because you think that they need you or you can help, you know, they need help, the situation does, the work does, and you want to try and you want to stay there, or you're scared to leave and move on, don't quiet that inner knowing and that gut feeling that says, like, you don't like this, you don't like this. You deserve to do something that you like. Allow that to exist. Embrace yourself, embrace your truth, and live by it. I wish I would have left like the second that I was having issues, and I stayed for months beyond that. And it was draining. It led to being burnt out, led to me having a harder time picking myself up. Take my lesson rather than learning it yourself, and trust your judgment and move on when you feel like you're ready to move on. It's reminding me of how the really first moment that your brain catches on to the fact that when you're eating you feel full, that means that your stomach has actually been full for some time. And yet we continue to eat sometimes, maybe because we want to finish our plate, or it tastes so good, I'm just going to take a few more bites. That's really overstuffing yourself and giving your body more than what you need, which leads to a lot of honestly mental fog and overexertion of bodily functions. If it happens chronically over a long amount of time, it really wears you down, which is an odd example. But it's similar, like the moment when you're like, actually I'm full now. Like in this experience, I think that I've had my cap, I've hit my capacity, and it's time to move on. Move on sooner rather than later. So that is all that I have to share about this. If you are working at a psych hospital or interested in working at a psych hospital, which is where the idea to share this video came from. Someone requested it because they're considering working at a psych hospital, more so as a nurse. Good luck to you. I say do it if you want to. Don't take my experience as end all be all, because it's totally not. It's just my experience. It was bad for me, but maybe it could be great for you. But, you know, read the reviews on, glassceiling.com, and take them to heart. Know that people who work there know what it's like to work there better than I have the experience of what it is to work there. And yeah, trust your gut. Just follow your instinct and do your best. Try to make the difference in someone's day that you can, and then go home and leave the work at home. Do what you can for yourself in every moment and in your life, because the only person's life that you can truly change is yours. And okay, now I'm rambling. I commend everyone who does work there and everyone who's been there. If you've had a hard experience, I'm so sorry. I can imagine. My heart goes out to you, and if you've had a good experience, that's great. Like, I'm really happy that you did. Really happy that you did. That's all from me to you today. Thanks so much for watching. Please, again, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you in the next video. Peace.